Say you're on a cross-country flight and you're starting to get into the vicinity of the non-towered airport that you intend to land at. A number of things should start popping into your head as you get closer to the airport. When should I make a radio call to let the local traffic know that I'm approaching the airport? What runway am I going to plan to land on? How can I find out the wind direction and speed? How will I enter the pattern at this airport? How will I fly the pattern at this airport? What altitude should I fly the pattern at? Well, in this video, I'll answer all of those questions and provide guidance on how you should fly the traffic pattern. First, before you even take off from your departure airport, make sure you have read the chart supplement or airport flight directory associated with your destination airport. Make note of all the airport's runways, including their lengths and widths and any threshold displacements, as well as the airport field elevation. Also confirm if the runways are or are not left-hand traffic patterns. Normally they are left-hand traffic patterns unless noted on the sectional chart and chart supplement. In addition, make note of the ASOS and AWOS and CTAF frequencies for the airport so you can easily dial into your radios for picking up the airport's weather and talking to the local traffic in the pattern at the destination airport. So now with all of this information written down, preferably on your navigation flight log for the cross-country flight, you can be on your way for the actual flight. When you're about 15 miles away from your destination airport, listen to the destination's weather on its AWOS or ASOS frequency. From this information, you can determine what runway makes the most sense to land on. When you're about 10 miles away from your destination airport, announce on the radio over the airport's CTAF that you are, for example, 10 nautical miles to the southwest, inbound for a landing on runway X. Make another similar call when you're about 5 nautical miles away from the airport. Now, depending upon the runway you plan to land on and the direction you're approaching the airport from, you have a number of options on how to enter the traffic pattern to land. The most preferable way to enter the traffic pattern is on the 45-degree entry to the left downwind leg of the runway you plan to land on. You want to be at pattern altitude, typically 1,000 feet above the field elevation, when on the 45-degree entry to the downwind leg. This way, you and all the other traffic in the pattern are all at the same altitude and can easily see each other when flying in the traffic pattern. Make sure to announce over the CTAF that you are entering the 45-degree entry into the left downwind for the runway that you plan to land on. If approaching the airport and the runway of intended landing is such that entering directly onto the 45-degree entry to the downwind is not possible, then there are a couple of other ways to enter the traffic pattern. First, if the downwind leg that you plan to enter on is on the opposite side of the airport from which you are approaching from, then you can fly over the airport 500 feet above the pattern altitude. Make sure to announce over the CTAF that you are flying over the airport at 500 feet above the pattern altitude and plan to enter the traffic pattern on the 45-degree entry to the left downwind. Once you're well beyond the downwind leg, you can then do a descending right turn in a teardrop fashion so that you can enter the pattern on the 45-degree entry to the downwind leg at pattern altitude. Again, make sure to make the radio call as you enter the 45-degree entry to the downwind leg, and once again when you are established on the left downwind leg itself. Now, the only problem with this type of entry, particularly for low-wing airplanes, is that during the right descending turn, your high left wing will prevent you from seeing other traffic that may be entering the pattern on the 45-degree entry to the downwind. So you'll need to maintain high situational awareness as you make that descending teardrop turn, both looking outside and on the radio. Also keep in mind, an aircraft does not need a radio to operate in a non-towered airport. The second way you can enter the traffic pattern when having to cross over the airfield is to enter the pattern on the midfield crosswind at pattern altitude, and then just after you cross over the runway of intended landing, turning left to enter a midfield left downwind. The advantage of this type of traffic pattern entry is that you maintain visibility at all times as you enter the traffic pattern and turn on the downwind leg. Again, as you cross over the field, call out over the CTAF frequency that you are crossing midfield at pattern altitude to join the left downwind on runway X. The only downside of this technique to enter the traffic pattern is that it makes your downwind leg very short, so you need to be really on your game about bringing power back and putting in the first notch of flaps as you quickly come abeam of your runway landing spot. Now, once you enter the traffic pattern, flying the traffic pattern and landing should be pretty straightforward. Simply fly the traffic pattern as you were taught back at your home airport. When you're abeam the runway numbers, reduce power and put in your first notch of flaps to start bleeding off some airspeed and starting a descent. When the runway numbers are behind your left shoulder and approximately a 45-degree angle behind you, turn base and make the call that you are turning left base. After rolling out on base, put in your next notch of flaps and manage pitch and power for your base leg airspeed. Finally, as you're about to roll out onto final, call that you're turning final, runway X. After rolling out on final, and you can confirm that you have the runway made, put in your last notch of flaps and adjust pitch and power for your final approach speed. As you cross the runway threshold, reduce power and pitch for transition to level flight and then flare for the final touchdown. So that's all there is to enter a traffic pattern to fly the traffic pattern at a non-towered airport. If you like this video, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel so that you get notified on my next video.